Hello and welcome back to the channel, Nerds and Nerdettes. Today we're going to have a little bit of a different video for you guys. We're going to have a top 10 titles that I read to get that spooky, creepy, eerie kind of feel that we all like to get during October. A couple things to keep in mind going into the video. That one, this is not in any specific order at all, and hopefully give you guys some recommendations to read during this month. But we can go ahead and get into the list, and we can start with the first book. First book, we have King of Eden by Takashi Nagasaki. This is a manga. It is a 3-volume set, and that's pretty much the only material that I know of. I don't know if it continued from here, but I do know that the story is covered in all 3 volumes. This is a somewhat virus survival, similar to a zombie type story in a way, but it has a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a play on it, as well as a mystery that you have to figure out as you read. But it's really great for people that enjoy zombies but may not enjoy the ghoul-like slow-moving style of zombies, because there is a big difference in this that takes place, which I will leave to you guys to find out once you read. But I definitely recommend this for people that enjoy very dark and gritty and bloody imagery, as well as a little bit of confusing storytelling that kind of keeps you thinking and kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat as well. And with that, we'll go ahead to the next title. Next up, we have Deceased by Tom Taylor and published by none other than DC. This is, again, a little bit of a play on the typical zombie story. It pretty much covers a DC universe where a technological virus has been unleashed on the population of Earth, and it does have all the key players of the DC universe, such as Superman, Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman, and we actually get to see each and every one of them play a role, either big or small, in the entire outbreak. And this definitely doesn't hold any punches and doesn't guarantee any lives to be spared by the end of the story. But there are 4 hardcovers out so far. It's currently ongoing in single issues, so you can probably expect more. But that's Deceased by DCcomics. Next up, we have I Am a Hero by Kengo Hanasawa. This is, again, a very similar style of storytelling that does involve zombies, with a very significant twist on their existence. But it's mostly a horror survivor style of story, where we follow our main character, Hideo, pretty much going through the zombie apocalypse one day at a time, practically. And the twist with his character is he does suffer from delusions and sees things, and because of that, he's always thought he wasn't very important in his own life, and suddenly a outbreak takes place and he's put front and center. I think people that will enjoy this are people that enjoy a slow burn style of story, because it does take a bit of build up to actually get to the heart pumping, edge of your seat style storytelling that happens later in later volumes. But there are 11 volumes of this. When I was hunting them down, at least, it was a little bit hard to track down. I'm not too sure now. I've heard rumors of reprints, but I'm not 100%, and don't quote me on that. But there are 11 omnibus volumes that hold 2 volumes in each, so you're looking at a decent amount of content there, and it's one hell of a ride from beginning to end. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next book from there. Next up, we have The Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman, published by Image. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of this, but I have to put it on the list just because of not only its historical value towards comics, but also just how much I enjoyed it. This is definitely an amazing story, and definitely deserves all of the recognition and attention that it has gotten. And it had me from pretty much issue number 1 almost immediately. There are 16 hardcover volumes. There are also, I believe, 4 paperback compendiums. So obviously, due to the popularity of the show and everything like that, they are pretty easy to find. You just kind of gotta hunt. I think there are omnibus slipcase edition or library edition style books as well, if you're into that. But this story does have a little bit of your more traditional style of zombie, kind of the ghoul style of zombie that moves slow and mainly bites as its form of attack. So for lovers that enjoyed the classic Romero zombie films, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, anything like that, this is definitely a title you should check out if you haven't already. And obviously, if you've enjoyed the show, or any of its spin-offs, I'm not sure if there's any more out currently, then this is definitely something worth checking out as well. But that's Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman. We have Drifting Classroom by Kazuo Umez. Very well known as pretty much the inspiration that brought Junji Ito. Obviously, I couldn't include Junji Ito just because he would fill the entire list. He only does horror, so I put some limitations on myself, but Umez definitely deserves to be in the list. Pretty much the story just picks up with a child heading to school after an argument with his mother, and once he arrives at school, the school suddenly vanishes in a flash and gets teleported to a new dimension, a new world. Don't want to give up exactly where it goes or why or anything like that, but it does have some mystery elements, and it has a lot of survivor horror. It doesn't hit as hard because the art is a little bit dated, but it's still some pretty disturbing stuff that takes place in the book. So that wraps up the Drifting Classroom, and we'll move on to the next one. This is Outcast by Robert Kirkman, published by Image. Again, the same writer from The Walking Dead, if you haven't noticed. This story is almost a little bit of a love letter to movies like The Exorcist or Poltergeist or anything like that, because it does incorporate and have to do with demons and exorcisms and poltergeists and possessions and everything along those lines. So if you are a fan of those kind of classic horror films, then this is definitely worth the pickup. It had the hairs standing up on the back of my neck at panel number 1, the very first issue and the very first page. It has that level of shock factor, and the art in this is Sean Murphy, but mix in some super weird and dark imagery, and that's what you get. And that's probably the best way I can describe it without you guys checking out yourselves. But that wraps up Outcast. Move to the next one. I guess I can kind of get this out of the way. Berserk by Kentaro Miura in the Dark Horse Deluxe editions. There are, it's right here to my right, 11 volumes out currently. I believe the 12th one is coming out somewhat soon. It's as good as you've heard it is. Again, if you've probably been living under a rock, you may not have heard of this, but you probably have. A lot of dark themes and very twisted characters are explored in this. Definitely not for the faint of hearts, and definitely doesn't hold any punches either. Being attached to any character that you come across is not a smart thing to do in probably any of these books, but as well as Berserk. But if you are a fan of blood and gore and a lot of body horror, and just gruesome details to some absolutely disturbing panels, then this is definitely worth the read and something that you should definitely check out if you haven't. But that's, without any more explanation that it probably doesn't need, that is Berserk by Kentaro Miura. Next up, we have something I fairly recently did a review on, which is Something is Killing the Children by James Tynion. Boom Comics published this. It's in these beautiful hardcovers. I believe it's collected in trade paperbacks and everything as well, but there's only one hardcover that's been released so far. This has a lot of blood and gore, breakneck style of action. So for anyone that is into hardcore action, edgy style characters with a mystery that you kind of are trying to figure out throughout each and every page, this is definitely a book for you. I definitely recommend it to people as well that are very interested in the monster under the bed style of storytelling, because that almost directly has to do with the premise of the story, and it's as good as a lot of us have heard. The hype is worth it and definitely 100% deserved, and it was a great read. And I actually read this recently and very much enjoyed it, and I felt like it definitely creeped me out a little bit as far as the dark and gritty artwork and the very mysterious storytelling that kind of took place. So that wraps up Something is Killing the Children, so we can go ahead to the next book. This is Nemesis by Mark Miller, published by Icon, at least this hardcover. This is pretty much if you took Batman and somehow mixed him with a absolutely insane, bloodthirsty, sadistic psychopath, and that is exactly what you would get, and that is what this book essentially covers. We get a character very similar to Batman that has a lot of access to wealth, weaponry, a skill set that is very lethal in the right hands, and we get to see him essentially play with a lot of key characters that we get introduced to throughout the story, and he does some pretty messed up stuff. So I definitely recommend this to DC fans, for one, because he's pretty much an evil Batman, and I also recommend this to people that enjoy kind of a twisted style of storytelling, because some stuff that happens in this story is stuff that I would not think of and would not wish on my worst enemy, and it takes place in this story, and you can go ahead and get this book or read this digitally and find out yourselves and find out just how twisted the character of Nemesis actually is. But that wraps up this book, so we'll move to the last one. Last but not least, we have Supreme Power Nighthawk by Daniel Way. This was put out by originally the Max line for Marvel, which was originally a more mature adult style of Marvel books, but I'm just going to say Marvel. But pretty much this is a story that involves Nighthawk in the Supreme Power world, and he's essentially hunting down a killer clown. To be as vague as possible, to not reveal any spoilers, but there's a lot of disturbing things that again take place in this, and it really finds a way to really put you in Nighthawk's shoes and feel a lot of empathy for who he is as a person, as well as a hero, and the things that he has to come face to face with every day being a vigilante in the Supreme Power world. I feel like this also doesn't get a whole lot of attention, the entire Supreme Power line, which I think is very shameful. I think it's a great story with great characters, great reimagining of the Squadron Supreme characters, and because of that, I had to include it on the list. So that wraps up Supreme Power Nighthawk. That wraps up my list. I'm very interested in what you guys thought, or if you checked out any of these books that I named, or if they give you a similar feeling that they give me. I'm also very interested in what you guys' list and opinions would be as well, because I'm always open to recommendations, because of course While I've read a decent amount of comics, I haven't read everything, and I'm always looking for more material to read, new material to read, and definitely horror material to read. Because horror and suspense are typically not the genre that I'm hunting for when I'm shopping for books. So I'm definitely open to what you guys are enjoying or have enjoyed in the past. But that does wrap up today's video. So as always, if you'd like to join the Illuminati, please hit that subscribe button and that bell notification so you can get notified anytime I put out content. If you'd also do me a personal favor and hit that thumbs up icon, it really helps with the algorithm for the channel. You can also follow me on my social medias, which, as I've said before, is the same thumbnail as the YouTube. But other than that, that pretty much wraps up the video. So I'll see you guys on Monday, and don't forget to stay nerdy. This was do I have anything in my teeth? Sorry. Kid, you're distracting me. You can also go lay down.
Yeah, you fucking crooked. You're not crooked.
Huh?
You're not crooked.
And with that, we'll go ahead and this is again a very